Fantastic. Well, we would love to hear a little bit about how you got into all of this and maybe a little bit about your social media. And then if you want to kick it off us and teach us about some cheese and show us how to build the perfect board, be perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for having me. I have a soft spot in my heart for Johns Hopkins because I am a native person from Baltimore and grew up just in Pikesville. So some of you might know that, know where that is. And my son, I have a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old son. And my son, who is perfectly healthy now, but as a very young baby, received treatment at Johns Hopkins. And we were really, really impressed with the care that he received, the aftercare, and just have a fondness for Johns Hopkins, as well as I played lacrosse in high school and went to Johns Hopkins lacrosse camp. So go Hopkins. So a little bit about me. I am a lawyer by day, like I'm sure a lot of you are. I'm a lawyer by day. I'm married to also someone from Baltimore, and we have 2 young sons. And what else is more exciting than litigating cases? Eating and socializing and drinking and hanging out with your friends. And I've always loved sort of hostessing and putting things together and putting out a little thing for something for someone to eat. Even if they come over to your house, you don't want to just give them like a bag of chips. So I always like to make things look a little nicer than that. And so I've just started, you know, in the last, I don't know, maybe decade or so, really been into making boards, whether it's snack boards, grazing boards, cheese boards, anything like that. Is really fun for me to put out. And so in the last couple of years, I've sort of gravitated towards cheese and charcuterie. And I started putting things up on Instagram, and maybe I had a few followers, maybe my parents and my immediate friends. And then, like I said, over the last, few months in quarantine, I've sort of been doing this more obsessively and passionately and learning a lot more about it. And I started this business. It's called Cheese MD. I make, specially curated and artisanally selected cheese boards. And I started making these really fun picnic boxes. Not everyone can have these large parties anymore and have something that serves 12, 14, 16 people. So what can you have now in quarantine while we're needing to socially distance? You can have a smaller board, or you can make a picnic box that serves 2 to 4. And I'm not a professional cook. I'm not a chef. I didn't go to culinary school. We're not cooking here today. We're literally just taking items that you can find in your everyday grocery stores and markets and putting it together and making it look nice and special that you can eat yourself, or you can, share with the people that you want to hang out with when you can do that again. So let's just sort of get started, okay? So everyone, I guess, got my shopping list. And so the first thing that everyone's going to probably grab is your serving dish. And you can literally use anything around your house that is sort of a vessel to hold your cheese board. I like to use something round. This is a wooden charger plate that I got at Target for 10 bucks. But like I said, you can use a plate, you can use a cutting board, you can lay it out on your kitchen counter if you want. So we're going to start with our plate. So everyone can grab their plate. And the first thing that I like to do is I like to put out a couple ramekins. And we're going to talk about what you're going to do with the ramekins in a couple minutes. But the first thing I like to do is just kind of like put them out on my plate, and hopefully everyone can see a little bit, just to kind of get our spacing and our bearings out for what we're going to put in the ramekins. And you can put tons of different fun things in the ramekins, like nuts and jellies and candies and things like that. So we'll do that sort of at the end. And after the ramekins, you're going to want to sort of position your cheeses. You're going to get your cheese. And I selected 3 different cheeses for us today. And I always like to mix the cheeses and have a variety of different types of milks. So you can have cow's milk or goat's milk. I'm sure there's even some vegan cheeses out there that will serve, the same sort of purpose. But you want to have soft cheeses, you want to have hard cheeses, you want to have semi-soft cheeses, because we not only eat with our mouth, but we want to eat with our eyes. We like to look at textures, and we like to have things that don't just look like, deli sliced cheese from your local Giant or Safeway. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about some of these cheeses, and I'm going to teach you some techniques about how to cut it. and how to make things look fancier. Because I'm sure lots of you out there have just literally bought cheeses from the store, taken it out of the plastic, and placed it on your plate. And of course, people are going to eat it, absolutely. But they're going to enjoy it so much better when it looks a little prettier. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about this aged Gouda. And aged Gouda is a really hard cheese. I got this at Trader Joe's. Lots of you have Trader Joe's. They sell an aged Gouda probably at any place in the nation or world. You know, Goudas are from Holland. They're sweet, they're nutty, and the aging process, you can get a softer Gouda, which is like oftentimes the one that you see with the red wax on the outside. But the aged Gouda is aged for 15, 18, 20 months, however long. This one's called a 1,000-day aged Gouda from Trader Joe's. I think it's like $12 a pound, so it's not super expensive. But it's my first cheese that I always get. It's my go-to. So what you want to do is you want to take some sort of knife. I like to use this sort of, you know, chef's knife. It's like a standard, easy to use chef's knife. And you want to just start, hopefully you all can see me. Let me move some stuff away. You want to just break it up. Like you see how I'm kind of twisting it, and you're making these little, sort of like these little shards of the cheese, okay? So we want to break all that up. Takes a few minutes. You can have big pieces, you can have little pieces. Aged Gouda is really good also on a salad. When I was in law school, I lived in New York City, and there was this amazing salad place right near the courthouse where I worked that had, you know, dried cherries and aged Gouda. That's sort of where I was introduced to aged Gouda from, and it was just amazing, and I loved it, and I've never looked back. So we want to chop up the aged Gouda, make sure you're not, you know, cutting your fingers, and then you want to just take a handful of your aged Gouda and just put it wherever you want. Just put it on your plate. Let's cut up a little bit more. You want to make it really full. We like our boards to look kind of stuffed, so that like when people come up to the board, they see there's a lot of stuff there. And when you walk into something that's really plentiful and robust, you're more likely to eat, as opposed to walking up to something that has like one strawberry and one cracker. You're not going to take it. So you want to kind of like make all that and put that all on your cheese board. Okay? So the next thing we're going to talk about is a cheddar. Everyone knows about cheddar. It's a pretty common cow's milk cheese. This one is from Beecher's. I got it at Balducci's, which is a local market here in Bethesda where I live, but they sell it everywhere. You can get it, you know, online. I think they're based in Seattle. So the cheddar, what you want to do, you see it's like kind of in a triangle. So you want to slice it, and then we're going to fan it out on another part of our board. So I'm going to cut my piece of cheddar in half. And I don't know what everyone has. I don't think everyone has the exact same cheeses that I selected, but find, if you have a hard cheese, find that and kind of use this technique. Because again, you want to make it pretty. So I'm going to take my cheddar and I'm just going to slice it so that it's a little piece of a triangle. You see that? And then we're going to start putting that and building that on our board as well. So let's take a minute to just cut up our cheddar. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, we are not professional chefs. We're not on Top Chef. We're not going to get graded on our knife skills. People are going to eat it no matter what it looks like. But again, we want it to look kind of pretty. So we're going to slice up our cheddar, and we're just going to kind of fan it out on the board a little bit so that it complements, you know, our Gouda. Okay. And if you can see, the Gouda is a little more caramelized because it has that aging process. And this cheddar from Beecher's is a little lighter in color. So you kind of want to accent, you know, all your different colors. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to turn this over. The final thing that I love is this Sargent Peppers goat cheese from Cypress Grove, which is a California-based cheese manufacturer. They make lots of different cheeses. I don't know about you, but I like spice. And Cypress Grove has a lot of these discs, these easy discs of goat cheese that have lots of different flavor options. And this one is my favorite because it has a little heat. It has 4 different peppers in it. It gives it a little kick because, you know, most cheeses, with the exception of maybe your blue cheeses, your truffle cheeses, a lot of cheeses are, you know, typically fairly mild in palate, but I like heat and I like kicking things up. So you take a little disc. These are, again, are relatively inexpensive. They're about $7. I think I got this at the Fresh Market, if you all have the Fresh Market in your area. So you just want to take your disc, slap it on your board, and call that a day. So the next thing I want to talk about, let me throw a little bit more of my cheddar on here so it looks a little better. The next thing I typically do whenever I plate a board is I put meats on it. And again, all of these things can be sort of substituted for other things. If you, like I said, if you're vegan, you can substitute it for a vegan cheese or no cheese. If you don't eat meat, you don't have to put meat on. There are other like non-pork related meat options out there, but I like to use Columbus salami. It's pretty easy, it's pretty inexpensive, it's pre-sliced. So I always like to use a sort of soft, pliable salami, and then this hard salami that I'm going to show you from a local place here that's sold in my farmer's market called Meat Crafters. So salami, again, you can literally just take it out of the bag and slop it on your cheese board, and everyone will eat it and everyone will like it, but it's going to look 10 times better if you make it look pretty. Okay, so I'm just going to show you all a few different like tricks that you can make the meat look a little pretty. So you can take it, you can fold it in half, you can lay it down on your board, you could make it like a little cigar, you can roll it up entirely, and you can make it like a cigar, but just little ways to present something, again, doesn't require a lot of culinary skill, just a little creativity. There are some really cool people out there on Instagram, and my goal one day is to learn how to make these salami roses, where you take a bunch of salami and you somehow lay it out and you zhuzh it all together and it looks like a rose. I'm not there yet, but you know, lots of practice one day and I'll get that for you. But you want to just take your meat and you want to make it look kind of cool. Like there are other people out there that make it like a meat river or you know, different patterns that they're making with these salamis. But I kind of just like, I want to sort of make it, I'm going to make it across my cheese board so that, you know, you can sort of access it from all directions. Okay, so I'm just going to fold a bunch of these up. I'm going to use my ramekins to kind of keep everything together until you know, we fill everything up. I'll show you guys a little bit kind of what it looks like. I don't know, hopefully you can all see it. And, you know, we'll just continue working together. And the reason why I like a lot of these salamis is because they're sort of, you know, easy, they're pliable, they're tasteful, they're inexpensive. You know, you don't want to have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars to make something look, you know, super nice when you're together, getting together with your friends. So we've rolled up all of our salamis, and then the next thing I want to do, because again, I love giving people different options, and I like different textures. So the next thing I want to show you all is this salami from Meat Crafters. It's from Maryland, it's a Maryland-based company, and they sell it, like I said, I live in Bethesda, they sell it at our Bethesda Farmers Market on Sundays, and they're these amazing homemade salamis. This one's I got this one for you all from Baltimore because it's Chesapeake recipe salami, and it has some Old Bay in it. So I figured you Baltimore people might enjoy, you know, having that flavor profile, and I think it goes really well with the Cypress Grove Sargent pepper, you know, goat cheese that we have. So again, can slop the salami down on your plate with a knife and let people go to town on it. But it's so much prettier if you just take your knife again. You can use the same knife that you use to cut up your really hard cheese, and just slice me up a little bit of these like on the bias pieces of salami. Okay, we're gonna take like a handful of these, and we're gonna throw this on our cheese board. And of course, you always want to taste everything ahead of time to make sure that you like things. Like some people, like I said, I like spice, but some of your guests that you're serving this for or your family might not like spice. And so you always want to like kind of know what the people that you're hanging out with like. So I've cut up a bunch of these salamis from Meat Crafters, and I'm going to sort of pile them all together, and we're going to put them near our other. Maybe I'm make a couple piles and put a little bit next to the goat cheese, and then I'm going to put a little bit more on the other side, like near the Gouda. want to try to get a little things like some things symmetrically and put things in little piles. That sort of helps when people are eating and grazing. They're not taking everything from one pile and you're left with like a hole with nothing there. So we're going to take a little bit more of these salamis and we're going to put them next to the aged Gouda. Okay, so everyone see that a little bit? Okay. So next thing I'm going to do is we're going to add some of our crackers. Okay, and you know, by no means do you have to do this in order. You feel free to do it the way you want. I really like these crackers. They're from Firehook Bakery. If anyone's local to DC, it's a local bakery. They're selling them everywhere now, though, which is really awesome. But I like Firehook Bakery. They have a bunch of different flavors. These are just the plain sea salt. I think they have rosemary. That, like I said, I like spice. They have spicy ones. But I think when you're having cheese, because you want to taste the cheese, you want to taste the meat, you want to get a cracker that's not overly saturated with flavorings. Again, it's a total personal preference. That's sort of my recommendation. And so you want to take the crackers however you want. I'm just going to kind of lay them next to some of my cheeses. I'm going to put a couple on both sides. You can break them. These are a little long, but you can break them in half if you want. And go to town on that. I also like to mix up, just like I like to mix up the meats, and the cheeses, I like to also mix up the crackers. You know, I'm a big fan of Trader Joe's, if I haven't mentioned that yet. These are Trader Joe's fig and olive crisps. They're by, I don't know, at my store, they're kind of by the freezer section, like where the ice creams are for some reason. But check your local Trader Joe's. They're small, they're dark. I think they were probably a piece of bread at some point, but you slice them really thin. And just want to kind of like cluster them together. And again, put them, because the goat cheese is really soft and these are kind of hard, I like to put them near my goat cheese so that folks can just take them and use them as like a natural dipper, you know, of the goat cheese. So we're going to take those, we're going to put a little bit on the other side, again, just kind of balance out our board. So I'm going to put a few next to our salami, okay? And then, you know what, I'm going to start filling up these ramekins. And so the ramekins are things that we can use anything on, okay? So these are just fun little ramekins. I bought them in New York City at this Asian grocery that has like really cool little knickknacks that you can buy and use. And they're colorful because a lot of the meats and things on your board don't have a ton of color. So you might want to bring in some fun things to just kind of get your things popping. I love olives. These are Castle Vetrano olives. They're really briny, salty, soft. I guess they come pitted or unpitted. So I like to take a handful of these olives and throw them in, you know, one of my ramekins. It also adds like a little pop, you know, a little pop of color for your board. And then another thing that I absolutely love putting on is seasoned nuts. Everyone likes nuts. I mean, some people are nut allergic, but I love putting nuts on my board. Nuts and cheese go great together. And like I said, no culinary training whatsoever. I like to season my own nuts. Super easy. You can buy any bag of, you know, unsalted, roasted cashews or almonds, mix it with some powdered sugar, a little bit of water, a seasoning of your choice. These have cayenne pepper in them because I like heat. And you bake them at 350 in the oven for about 20 minutes until they sort of start to caramelize a little bit. Take them out of the baking sheet, let them cool, and then you break it. It's like making your own sort of nut brittle. And then I like to throw them kind of on my cheese board. Again, you kind of feel like you're cooking because you're making seasoned nuts. So we're going to throw some of those out there. And then another thing that I absolutely love is, you know, fresh produce. You know, and depending on where you are, what time of the year it is, what your groceries have, you may or may not be able to get this exact type of produce that you want. So the best type of things to use, obviously, are local seasonal ingredients. There's this company in, I guess, I don't know if they're Bethesda-based, but it's basically like a grocery box or a produce box that you order online, and you pick it up and they put it in your cart for you, completely contactless. and inside it's filled with all the things that are seasonal for that particular week. But I like to fill my board with produce and with some dried fruit. So these are dried mangoes. They're super sweet, they're super colorful. They're pretty big, so you don't want to just like have one little big piece of mango. So I like to cut them a little bit, and they're also going to look really good on our board. So again, you take your chef's knife and just kind of cut them in half to make it a little more manageable, or maybe cut them into thirds to make it a little more manageable for yourself or your guests to enjoy. And they're bright orange, so we kind of want to put it somewhere that needs a little pop of color. So we're going to put them next to our salami. It's, you know, red and orange, sort of complement each other a little bit. We're just going to cut up a little bit more of the mango. Maybe put some on the other side. Again, like balancing it out a little bit. I don't know if you all can see that, but we're gonna do that. I'm gonna add a little bit more crackers just to fill everything in. I like everything to look really, really sort of dense and plentiful. Again, my thoughts are that people will enjoy it more if it looks like there's a lot more food there than just like a chip and a cracker and a wedge of cheese. Okay, what else can bring us in some color? So again, we want to add a little bit of color. So you can buy so many different things. These are just grape tomatoes. We're going to sprinkle them throughout a little bit. We're going to put a couple here next to our salami. We're going to put a little bit next to our olives. Maybe let's put a little bit on next to our Gouda. It just kind of balances out the board and shows you like a little pop of color. Let's see what else we have. Another thing that I like to use, you know, different textures. Some people don't like crackers. There's lots of different things that you can use to replicate or to simulate the cracker, the vessel that's being used to eat your cheese. These are just those mini English cucumbers that you can get anywhere. So let's cut up a couple of those. Again, like on the bias. You can fan them out and put them on your boards. I have an apple, a green apple up here also that will serve the same purpose. Some people like jicama. Jicama is a really mild flavor. And if you cut it really thin, can also sort of be like a cracker. So we're just gonna put some of these cucumbers in a space where we need a little bit of color again. And I'm just gonna throw them here with near my tomatoes. And we're gonna put a little bit more on sort of the other side. Like that. Maybe fill in a little more of our cheese. So you just kind of want to like eyeball things and make sure that you have enough for everyone that's eating. So we're just going to throw in a little bit more cheese because I don't like that there's like some spacing in here. Okay, what else have we not used yet? So I like sweets. Some people think that cheese should be really savory, and that's their choice, but I like to have the cheese board have something on it for everyone. So I like to put on chocolate. I like to put on, you know, like I said, dried fruit. These are really yummy. These are chocolate covered cherries, and they're really good for a pop of color. And they're sweet and savory, and we can add them in our board. And I'm just going to kind of sprinkle them sort of throughout, and people might not know what they are, so when they pick it up, they're just kind of excited about trying something new, and they, you know, want to try something with some of the cheeses and some of the meat. So we're just going to kind of sprinkle them a little bit. I also love, again, an homage to Maryland. I love my burger cookies. If you guys have never had burger cookies, you are far missing out. They're insane. They're the best. I've been eating them forever, and they are a huge piece of chocolate, essentially, with like a little bit of cookie. So we're gonna put some burger cookies on our board. You can use, sometimes I use like chocolate covered pretzels, or black and white cookies are really yummy. Whatever you like, throw a little sweet along your way. You can get these burger cookies. They actually sell them at Giant, where I live. They sell them at some specialty markets. I know they have a website, but you can get them at delis. We're a huge fan of burgers. When I got married in Baltimore years ago, our gift bags for our hotel guests were filled with, what do all Baltimore people do? That's potato chips, burger cookies, Guess's caramel creams, and anything, Baltimore related. So they sell them in 2-packs also, and you can put them in little bags for people. Finally, you have to have some sort of jam, whether it's honey, whether it's a compote, whether it's a fig jam. My absolute go-to goes with every freaking cheese board that I make is roasted garlic onion jam by Stonewall Kitchen. You all have probably seen Stonewall Kitchen products everywhere. This literally goes with anything. If you want, you can plop it in the center of your board if you have room. Sometimes I take just like a little baby ramekin and spoon out a little bit and put it on my board, or we're a little stuffed here, but we can always make room. We can throw it here, and you want to serve it with a little spoon or something. Stonewall Kitchen makes great stuff, and this is my absolute jam, go-to fig jam. And then finally, last but not least, because I don't want to be the one doing all the speaking, because I want to hear and see what you guys have made. You want to dress it up with a little garnish. There's chefs out there that say you should never put anything, and again, I'm not a chef, but there's chefs out there that say you should never put anything on the plate that you don't intend to eat. But I'm not a chef. So I take a little sprig of rosemary. You always want to buy your herbs. Herbs can dry out relatively quickly if you don't preserve them properly. Some people might grow them, but you can buy herbs anywhere. You want to take a little sprig of rosemary, wet a paper towel, and then store them in your refrigerator around this wet paper towel. And just take a little sprig of your rosemary and just lay it on your board. Kind of gives your guests and even yourself just the idea that you took a little extra time to make it nice, make it look good, and there's that. So here is our inaugural Johns Hopkins Baltimore cheese board with lots of yummy things. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear and see what you all are making. And hopefully someone's put something awesome together and has someone coming over tonight to share it with them.
Yeah, so I put in the chat group that we are going to invite a couple of you, if you're interested, to share your boards. We are going to answer your questions. We've got some great questions here in the chat. So we'll have Melissa answer your questions first. And then if you would like to share your board, just raise your hand on here or drop in the chat to the panelists, letting us know that you'd be interested in sharing, and we'll be able to choose maybe 2 or 3 people to share what their boards look like and what they put on their board. So Melissa, we have some questions. The first one we received, I was able to answer, but for the whole group, how do you spell your Instagram handle?
Oh, okay. So it's Cheese, Cheezend, Maryland or doctor or whatever play on words you want. So Cheese, Cheezend.
Awesome, thank you. We got a question about some mustard. So if you wanted to include mustard on your cheese board, what would you include that in place of, or would that be something additional that you would add on?
So I don't like to oversaturate any of my boards with too many of things that I call similar items. So mustards, jams, honeys, compotes, all of that would never be eaten alone. It would always complement something like a meat or a cheese or a cracker. So to answer your question, literally, you'd probably substitute, if you only wanted to put out one thing, you would substitute your fig jam or your Stonewall Kitchen garlic onion jam for your mustard. And there are some really good mustards out there that, it's totally a personal preference, but I would substitute something like your jam for your mustard.
Great. Okay, so we have a question here. Valerie would like to know, if you're putting an uncommon cheese on the board, do you typically recommend maybe putting small labels or something to indicate what people are eating?
I'm not a huge fan of the label. And that is just my own personal preference, because I think cheese is something that you can use to begin conversation. And I think if you're given the answer as to what something is, then that eliminates the opportunity for you to talk to your hostess or talk to someone else and figure out, sort of what it is. And it takes the guessing away from, figuring out, is this cow's milk? Is this goat's milk? Is this blue cheese? Does this have truffle in it? And so I think if you leave the labels off, it allows a conversation to flow a little bit more organically.
It's a great point. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. A cheese board really can be a conversation starter at a party. So Chris wants to know, what serving utensils or knives do you recommend, and how should those be presented?
So I guess you could use your fingers, like I do, but you want to put your jam, a little spoon for your jam, or a honey dipper if you're using a honey. You can find those anywhere. For these hard cheeses like our Gouda, they sell those little forks everywhere that you can sort of lay on top of your Gouda, so people can poke on it. The goat cheese, the Cypress Grove goat cheese, you'd want to do a little spreader, something, because it's a soft cheese, so something that you would use like a cream, for cream cheese, or Boursin or goat cheese, just use a little spreader there. And your little triangles of cheddar, you can use just another little fork. You can use your finger. If you don't want to use your finger, just use like that, a little server knife that they have that kind of are flat on the bottom, and you can use that to pick it up. All the other things are kind of just, I don't know, I guess in this climate that we're in, we're not so sherry of our foods anymore. So lots of little forks, spoons, dippers, all of those things. You can easily find those at any local grocery store or in your own drawer at home.
That's great. What temperature would cheese typically be served at? So I know I've heard that cheeses should be served at like a room temperature. They shouldn't be taken right out of the fridge and then presented. What is your take on that, or what do you recommend?
So I think it depends on if it's soft or if it's a hard cheese. The hard cheeses at room temperature are gonna get to room temperature, but they're not gonna melt. They're not gonna go anywhere. There are some soft cheeses like your triple cream, your brie cheeses, that really, when they're exposed to room temperature, are going to start to kind of get gooey. And so you don't want to put that out too quickly before your guests come, because it's going to take away how it looks, because it's in that sort of waxy, overcoat. So you want to kind of put that out as you're serving it. In terms of an actual degree, I'm not quite sure. I think you just have to eyeball it and see what you're comfortable with. And if you're starting to see that your things are getting a little goopy, then you took it out too soon, or you got to pump the air conditioning up a little bit in your house. But Great. It is food that is generally eaten sort of at room temperature.
Awesome. Okay, we got another question. Which wines do you typically serve with these boards?
Well, funny you should ask. So I am not a wine, connoisseur. I guess I'm more of a wine enthusiast. And like cheese, it is 100% up to your preference. I'm drinking a little rosé, and I think the cheeses that I put out here are fairly light in taste, with the exception of, like, obviously the spiciness of the goat cheese. But I'm a rosé person in the spring and summer. I'm a red wine drinker in the fall and winter. And I'm a white wine drinker before it becomes rosé season. So I really, truly think that anything can complement your cheeses. The Chesapeake Meat Crafters sausage has, again, a little kick. So I wouldn't want to overpower it with like a robust, beefy sort of red wine. You want to keep things a little light.
Great. Do we have any other questions? If so, feel free to drop them in the chat. And if you would like to share your board with us, again, just, chime in on the chat and let us know if you'd like to share. And we're in just a few minutes going to pull up at least one of those for you guys to be able to see what some of your colleagues or friends in the group have made as well. We have a question from John. He wants to know, how far in advance could you make this before a party?
You can generally make things the night before. I would be cautious about putting too many of your dried items on your cheese board if it's going to be next to sort of the moister products like the salamis, the fruit, the vegetables, because you know we've all had those salads where you've bought a pre-packaged salad and the croutons are in the salad and you get it and the croutons are gross. So you want to, if you're going to make it the night before, I would pull off the crackers and wrap them in some plastic wrap before putting it in your refrigerator. A lot of the things at Cheese MD, when I've been making these picnic boxes, I make them in the morning and I package them for delivery or pickup for like noon, 1 o'clock, and everything stayed fresh. A lot of my bigger boards, sometimes I do prep the night before and then just plate everything the morning of, because I want to keep everything as fresh and as crisp and flavorful as possible.
Awesome. That's really helpful. And we have another question. Wow, lots of questions. You guys are equally as enthused by cheese as we are. How do you pick cheeses that are different colors? Does that matter? Less than texture? Which one do you think is more important?
So a lot of cheeses are going to be very similar in color because milks are all similar in color. Where you get a lot of the color from is the aging process and the rinds and the wax and the things that are added to the cheeses. So blue cheese doesn't come from blue milk, it comes from the aging process. Some of these cheeses have an ash, you might have seen those in the middle, those sometimes, like a goat cheese that has like a little black line through it, that's made from like a vegetable ash. So that gives a little more flavor and a little more color. I was recently at my farmer's market on Sunday, and there's this great local cheese guy that made a sun-dried tomato and basil cheddar. And so you saw flecks of red and green throughout the cheese, and they gave it not only the taste, but it gave it a little bit of a color. So again, use all of your senses when putting together a board, because we not only like things that taste good, but we like things that are visually appealing and have different textures. And typically things with different color are going to have a little better flavor, or a stronger or different or unique flavor profile.
That's great. All right, we've got one more question in the chat, and then we are going to bounce over to a couple of people to share their boards. How would you plan, what should the portion be like, and how should you plan portion size depending on the number of people you have?
So I think the go-to is like 2 to 3 ounces of meat and cheese per person for who you're serving. But you have to also think about it, this is the only thing at your party or at your celebration or for yourself that you're having. Because you might have 10 people but you might also, 10 people with your cheese board, but you might also be having, sliders or mini hot dogs or, chips and queso. And so the volume of the cheese board might not get the same level of attention as some of the other things. But generally, I think 2 to 3 ounces of cheese and meat per person. And then you want to factor in all the other like fixins and toppings that you're going to throw on your board that are going to add to that volume.
Great, thanks. Melissa, before we start, we have a couple people who are going to give us a little tour of their boards so that we can see the creativity that some other people came up with. But before we do that, do you have any other, tips to share, any thoughts, anything our group should know about cheese or charcuterie or the accessories that go with it?
I would just say that this is something that is so easy to put together if you are creative and if you have the interest and the desire. Like every freaking person loves cheese. I had a million questions over Thanksgiving from all my friends all over the country asking for tips on how to design a cheese board. And these are all things that everyone can buy locally. You are only limited by your imagination. And I, encourage everyone to kind of take advantage of something that you might not think you would do before. Everyone's used to making their chicken and everyone's used to making their vegetable dips and their common things, but this you all can do. I just want you all to know that if you have any questions, comments, feel free to follow me on Instagram. Again, I'm CheeseMD. You can reach out to me if you're local and you want to buy a picnic box or a cheese box or a cheese board. I would love to make something for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. Okay, we're going to share a couple of boards here. We have, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4 people who volunteer, 3 people who volunteered to share their boards. So I am going to add William first to let us he can give us a little tour of his board. And let's see if he can, oh, there we go.
Hi, William.
Hey, Melissa, thank you so much. This was really helpful. I learned a lot. So
Awesome. Oh my God, that looks so great.
let's see here. You're mostly getting my t-shirt at this point. Let me, so we've got, you know, a bunch of different things you suggested on here. I've never done the cherry tomato thing to add color or adding the chocolate. So I thought that was really cool. As well as crumbling some of that harder cheese. I always want to just cut it into cubes. So
Great, awesome. And I like your mustard. Did you feel the mustard question?
yes, I was concerned about the mustard. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, we've got, let's see. We've got Helena. Helena, would you like to share your board?
Sure. You pronounced my name correctly. I'm very impressed.
Hi,
Oh,
Helena.
good.
Hi, Melissa. Okay, so I think I started it, yeah? Yeah. Okay, so I have never made board, but I will tell you, I've purchased boards from Melissa before, and this is my inaugural attempt. Can you see it?
It looks awesome.
It looks beautiful.
I had the fruit, and I happened to have some cucumber. I added blueberries because we really like those. I did the mango, and I added jelly beans because I like the color of the jelly beans.
I actually have jelly beans here that I didn't end up putting on. So I love jelly beans on boards. So good for you.
I did the little gherkins, the little pickles, and this is just like a spicy sort of Indian nut mix that I did.
Yeah.
I like the color because it has those wasabi peas in there and all that. So
Yeah. I love it, Helena.
thanks.
Helena's a big fan of Cheese MD, so I love that you logged in.
Awesome. All right, and last we have Madeline or Madeline. I want to make sure I pronounce it correctly, so you can correct me when you start your video.
Oh, does that work? Hi, it's Madeline.
Hi, Madeline.
Perfect, Madeline.
All right, thank you. This is all for me, so full disclaimer, no one coming
No
over.
judgment, Madeline.
I don't even care, really. Okay, so I had brie and aged Gouda. Hold on, sorry, I don't know if you can.
There you
This is
go.
odd. Okay, I had dark chocolate, gherkins, brie, some kind of Tuscan peasant cracker, walnuts, goat cheese, grapes. I had some pickled beets and mango, and yeah, and just water crackers.
That looks beautiful. I've never had the pickled beets before, so I think that that is a good veg and it's a good sort of color popper. I think that's a really good thing, that like a surprise that people won't expect to get on a board.
Thank you.
Well, this was a great class, Melissa. I know I learned a lot, and I'm not going to be doing my board right now, but I'm excited to have all of my cheers prepared to take your tips and to do a board on Friday night as a little quarantine date night for myself and my husband. So thank you so much for all of these awesome tips. Do you want to give everybody one more time how they can reach you on Instagram, where they can find you? And
yeah, sure. So you can find me on Instagram at CheeseMD. That's CheezeMD. Or I'm also on Facebook. If you want to like me on Facebook, same handle, CheeseMD. I'm making tons and tons of boxes this weekend. I'm going to be making boxes and boards hopefully throughout the summer. If the interest is still there, I would encourage you to reach out to me, because we're going to be doing awesome things for Father's Day. 4th of July is coming up, and there's lots of fun ways that you can play with color on those, especially with 4th of July. There's lots of fun things out there that you can add onto your boards to make them look a little more festive. So I love that you all zoomed in, I guess, and we want to thank you all for the opportunity to talk to you about cheese. Find your passion, find a side hustle, make it work for yourselves. It's really fun. And, you know, what else are we doing right now in quarantine?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa and Melissa. And for everybody who attended, there's going to be, when you close out of the Zoom, a survey that you can take to let us know. We at the Office of Alumni Relations want to make sure that we're providing you with programming that you're interested in. So if you take that survey, kind of let us know how we did today. And then if you have any other types of ideas of virtual events that you'd be interested in seeing, you can email me directly at L, as in Leah, Murphy, at jhu.edu. Thank you so much for joining us. This was so much fun, and please go enjoy your cheese boards and have a great night. Bye, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.